why don't you go ahead and stand up? We're going to lift our voices. We're going to sing some songs. We're going to have some fun this morning. We're going to clap. We're going to shout. Let's do this. All right, put those hands together. got a song to sing. Might not be on key, but it's from my heart. No one else can tell it what the Lord has done for me. This might take all day, so I better start right now. It might get loud. It might get loud. Come on. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. Somebody say, it might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. I don't have a halo. No, I'm not a perfect man. I'm just glad to be a child of God. What I could have been, should have been, would have been if you hadn't stepped in. I've got a praise on the inside that can't be denied, and I gotta get it out right now. It might get loud. It might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. It might get loud. It might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. It might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. 1, 2, 3, Why can't I praise him as loud as I want? Why can't I praise him as loud as I want? Why can't I praise him as loud as I want? Why can't I praise him as loud as I want? Why can't I praise him as loud as I want? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It might get loud. It might get loud. Might get loud. It might get loud. Yeah. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. Might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. Heaven's coming down, down, down. And it might get loud. Welcome to Journey's Crossing. Sorry, I had a hair metal flashback moment there. I forgot where I was. No, that's kidding. You may all be seated. Welcome to JC, where we like to have fun. Some mornings we have too much coffee. We're so glad you're here with us. Hey, we're going to move into a time of communion this morning. And on your chairs, you should have some juice and some bread. And we're going to take that together. Those things remind us of the body of Christ broken for us, the blood of Christ broken, blood of Christ poured out for us.
But first, why don't you watch this video, and then we're going to sing the song, and we're going to take it together. So watch this video.
Give thanks for the good days. When the traffic lights all turn green, when promotions come and bad habits are broken. Give thanks for warm meals and the company of friends. Give thanks for undeniable blessings and clear direction. When the music floods your soul and the worship songs flow without effort. Give thanks for coffee and clothing and hope that the two never mix. Give thanks for the mother who battles daily in prayer, for the father working 3 jobs, for the brothers and sisters who build blanket forts and read bedtime stories. Give thanks for sons and daughters and all our family who remind us of what truly matters. Give thanks for the stranger who holds the door open and the lifelong friend who holds you when life is broken. Give thanks for the hard days, for the phone call that brings life crashing down, for jobs lost and friendships fallen into conflict. Give thanks for the anger that reminds us we are human, and the tears that express more than words can ever fathom. Give thanks, though the pain is overwhelming, your energy spent, your spirit fallen, and your only option is to fall to your knees before your Holy Father and cry out, God, please help me. For in that moment, His power is made perfect. His love is made evident. He becomes your strength, your comfort, and your salvation. Give thanks for the power of redemption, from Genesis to Revelation, for the endless promises of a God who would rather sacrifice His Son than give up on His children. For nail-pierced hands, for brilliant dawns, for the cool touch of rain and the simplicity of a quiet day. For all things great and small, let us give thanks.
Except for our hearts singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response, I've got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Come on, my soul, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Come on, my soul, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. You got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Come on and praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise His name. Praise His name. Praise His name. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. I know it's not much, I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Sing this with me. Whoa, oh, So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. I know it's not much, I've nothing else to fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
Go ahead and take the bread this morning. Be reminded of His body of Jesus broken for you. Go ahead and eat. Take the cup and drink. Be reminded of His blood poured out for you. You pray with me. God, we give you our hearts this morning. Jesus, that's all you want. That's what you asked for. You gave your all for each one of us. You went to the cross for us. And so we praise you again and again, because all we have is a hallelujah. You are worthy of our praise this morning, worthy of our hearts. I just pray that it's not just a Sunday morning thing, but that this moment carries us through this afternoon and tomorrow morning as we wake up, that we're reminded of your goodness and we're reminded of your love that you have for us. that we would just be blown away by that. That we would be just taken back by that. So we praise you again and again and again. We give you our hearts. Thank you for loving us. We pray these things, Jesus, all in your name. Amen.
Crossing.
Good morning.
Okay, first service did way better than that. Just saying. No, I'm teasing, but they did do better, but I'm teasing. I am Lisa Runyon. Sorry.
And I am Sharon Walker. Oh my gosh, Lisa, it's the week of Thanksgiving. Are you ready?
I cannot wait for Thanksgiving.
My husband's a chef, so all I have to do is show up in my stretchy pants and I'm good. But anyway, welcome. We are so glad you guys are all here. It's so nice to see all these friendly faces. If you're joining us online, a very special hello to you as well. Today we're finishing up our series. I know, it's sad.
I'm sad. I love The Office.
We're talking about developing emotionally healthy relationships, and we're going to be talking today about fighting clean. We heard it first service. It was really good.
Yeah,
right?
it was really good.
Yeah.
Very helpful. I mean, a lot of things you can use today.
Yes.
So, y'all, when you came in, you got a program, right? You got a program? Can I see it? Show me the program. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so check out this program because it is packed full of information about things here that are going on here at Journeys Crossing. So you'll find it really helpful, including this Christmas insert, where we're looking for help to on our Christmas Eve services. So we're already planning those coming up. Another way you can get connected is through the JC mobile app. And you could actually download that right now from your app store. And that will, of course, fill you in on what's going on Sundays, but it will also help you stay connected all throughout the week, which is really awesome. And then, of course, we have all the social medias. Whatever you are on, we are on it too. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. We also we have our own YouTube channel.
Yes, we do.
So you can check that out. You can send that link to people like, hey, this was an amazing message I heard. Check this out. So a lot of really great ways to stay connected with you.
And if you've been here for a while, you know that we are all about staying connected, right? So in your programs, you have your connection card. So take a moment, seriously, take a moment to fill that out. You can do it on the paper copy. You can scan the QR code that's on the screen. If you're online, you can go to your JC app and click on Sunday services, and there is there's a button there that you can press to fill out your connection card digitally.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you're new here, welcome. We're so glad you've joined us. Just for joining us today, if you take your connection card out to the welcome desk in the lobby, we are going to exchange that for a handy dandy tumbler, which is great for a day like today where it's super cold outside, nice warm beverage in there. But it's just a way of saying thank you for joining us and just a way to stay connected, see what we're all about. And if you'd like to see what, we have an orientation called Next. You can check in and how to do that. So stay connected and welcome.
Yes, so y'all, this week is our last week in our World of Difference initiatives, and we need you to partner with us to do this. So we are having a stockings and totes fill, all right? So I love alliteration. I'm an English teacher. Stick with me here on this one. The totes are for toiletries, and those toiletries are going to be given to women in an interfaith homeless shelter. So really loving on people who really could use some good, some of these things we're providing. And then the stockings are for Seneca Heights, which is a transition housing. So we are filling these giant stockings. Have anybody ever done the stocking fill before? Yeah, it feels so good to like go shopping for this unknown child or person and like fill it full of things that you think that they would love. It just does your heart good. If you have kids, it does them good to see you doing that. And I'm glad to see they're so big because then I can get some big stuff in there. Before they were small and it was hard to shove all that stuff in. So that's really awesome. All right, so after service, you can go into the lobby. You can sign up for your stocking or your tote. You have options between if you want to give it to a man, a woman, a child, whatever. And then we're asking for those to be brought back on December 12th. So you have a couple weeks to get that, get your maybe some Black Friday shopping in if you're into that. I don't know. I am, but we'll see. So on December 4th, guys, we want you to mark your calendar, okay? we are having Serve Saturday. And what we're doing on that day, we have a whole bunch of service projects going on. Some of them will be here in the building. Some of them will be outside the walls of our building, helping out in various areas of the community. So there's going to be a bunch of projects. Most of them run between 10 a.m. and 12:30. So mark off your calendars now. That list is going to be ready soon for you to browse and see what ways you could help serve your community. All right, so we're really excited about that.
And then finally, on Tuesday, November the 30th. God, that sounds so strange.
I know.
Giving Tuesday. This is going to take place on Facebook. If you guys were here with us last year, you remember that we helped with Casa Hogar in Mexico. Yes. This year, we're going to continue helping our missionary in Thailand. His name is Yala. We've talked about him before. And he's doing some amazing work right now. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of Burmese refugees that are just flooding his area. So we're going to continue to help him. So mark your calendars for November 30th, Giving Tuesday, and it'll be on Facebook. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Okay, so now is a time of offering. And this is a time when those of us who call JC home give of our resources to continue the work that JC does here in our community, but also all over the world. And today, we have our friend Moses Massey, who's going to tell us a little bit about why it's so important for him and his family to give. So check this video out.
Hey JC gang, Moses here. I wanted to take a moment to share why I give to Journey's Crossing. And first off, my reason for giving to any church mission is because God is my creator, my sustainer. I simply yield a portion of my earnings as an act of worship, gratitude, and obedience to his word. So there's my Sunday school answer, but I want to navigate as to why I give to Journey's Crossing. In 2014, I was looking for a new church home, and I was doing my homework, doing some searching, yet Journey's made it extremely easy since their mission is directly aligned with what Jesus established for the church. And if you're not aware, take a look at your bulletin, look at the events, look at the announcements, look at the commitment to services, the small groups, the volunteers, see how much they pour back into our local community and all that's done internationally, worldwide. Personally, I benefited from many of these services. The JC staff and core volunteer base has always insisted how they can help and serve me more. I've seen a direct correlation between the blessings in my life as I've increased in giving my money and my time and my talents. I think the countless benefits of being an active member at JC. I met my wife at my small group. I built a community of brothers that I can just chill and kick it, and they're there for me at a moment's notice. My son took his first steps in the nursery and has made so many friends there. I mean, he has the time of his life there, and you can't really put a price on that. Moco parents, I do know you can put a price on how much these local play gyms and rec centers are. I mean, no one at JC's ever asked me for a dime to use any of these things, and I'm just extremely grateful for that. I have mentors and staff available for personal counsel, ready to help me at a moment's notice. Every Sunday, I get powerful messages that grow me spiritually and emotionally. They're actionable and have enhanced my performance within my marriage, my family, my career. So really giving to JC weekly is really a no-brainer. I'm getting the steal, to be honest. It gives exponential value, and I see benefit and fruit from it daily. So thanks for hearing me out, and I invite you to take a serious consideration to assess your giving today. Thanks.
Man, have you seen his son? They're like identical.
Adorable.
Like, I mean, I just watched that video. Yeah, adorable, adorable. So y'all, there are multiple ways you can give at JC, as you know. You can text the number on the screen, 301-880-1543, to text GIVE. There are blue boxes in the back of the auditorium if you have checks to drop in. There are kiosks in the lobby. And of course, you can give on that JC app that we talked about earlier, all right? I'd like to pray for our offering. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for the blessings that you give to each and every one of us, Lord. We do have so much, and I just ask, Father, that you speak to each individual. I pray that they would be open to hearing your prompting. I pray that people would be prompted to give to support the mission of Journeys Crossing, to support the meeting people where they are and helping them find and follow Jesus, some of them for the very first time. We know that we need resources to do outreach and to change people's lives for eternity. So I just pray, Father, that you would move people today, that you would take the offering that is collected and multiply it, blessing countless more than we even realize. We're so grateful to all that you give us, mostly the sacrifice of your perfect Son. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
As we continue on in a time of worship and offering this morning, I have a song that we're going to sing. The song is called Fierce. And it's interesting because the writer of the song, he describes the love of God like a tidal wave crashing over me. Your love is fierce. It goes on and on. And I don't know about you, but tidal waves freak me out. They're scary. If you remember, like 10 years ago, I think it was 2011 when that tsunami hit Japan. I remember seeing images of that. And for me, growing up there, parts of northern Japan that got hit, I remembered, I was just thinking, man, those are places I used to run around and play, skateboard, and do all these things. And so it was pretty frightening for me. So to think of the love of God as a tidal wave is kind of weird, kind of scary, but I get it. I get what the writer is trying to say. The love of God is how deep and how wide. We can't imagine the love of God. And so many times we want to think of God's love as something as soft and cuddly and light, but it's crazy. It's immense. It's powerful. The writer of Romans 5, verse 8, Paul says, Christ arrives right on time to make this happen. He didn't and doesn't wait for us to get ready. He presents himself with his sacrificial death when we were far too weak and rebellious to do anything to get ourselves ready. And even if we hadn't been so weak, we wouldn't have known what to do anyway. We can understand someone dying for a person worth dying for. We can understand how someone good and noble could inspire us to selfless sacrifice. But God put his love on the line for us by offering his Son in sacrificial death while we were of no use whatever to him. That's fierce. I like how the NIV says, it says, while we were still yet sinners, Christ died for us. You know, I always think, it's not until I get my life cleaned up, and then God loves me. It's only when I perform right. But that's not the love of God. God's love for you and for me is fierce. You think of the story of the prodigal son, where the son knows what he's done, and he comes home, kind of limping back home, and the father sees the son at a distance. He doesn't wait for him to come. He comes running after him with arms wide out, ready to embrace him. The fierce love of God we have. So let's sing the song. Let's give him our hearts in worship. Why don't you stand up?
Every turn I come
on. It chases us down. Seek us out.
You chase me down. You seek me out. How could I be lost when you have called me found? You chase me down. You seek me out. How could I be lost when you have called me found? You chase me down. You seek me out. How could I be lost when you have called me found? Like a tidal wave, crashing over me, rushing in to meet me here. Your love is fierce, like a hurricane that I can't escape, tearing through the atmosphere. Your love is fierce. Oh, your love is fierce. Your love is fierce.
Oh, life can get messy, can't it? Our relationships, one moment it's happy, throwing snowballs at each other, and the next moment somebody's attacking you with a lacrosse stick, you know? Now, we're talking about conflict today, and there was no shortage of clips for us to pull from The Office because it's just, there's always something going on if you're a fan of the show. Now, if you have watched television and maybe you like sitcoms or whatever, it seems like any story has to have this peak of conflict and then resolution. But what I find a lot of times in sitcoms is there's this crazy moment of conflict, like Ray Romano or whatever and his wife, and they're arguing, and and then there's this little where the writers have to insert comedy. Then there's this laugh track. Ray forgot to bring the butter home. They're angry, fighting. Real life does not have laugh tracks with conflict, does it? And some of our lives right now, as we go into the holidays, we know that we're headed for some doozies. Anybody, right? Thanksgiving's coming up this week. Christmas is around the corner. This can be a hard time for a lot of us. How many are expecting at least one blip of conflict on the radar with in-laws or extended family over the next month or so? Anybody honest enough to say it's going to happen? How many would say, I ain't going anywhere just because I'm going to avoid the conflict? Anybody honest enough to say that? For sure, right? Wow. But one thing COVID has done is either it's helped us avoid some conflict, or for others, it has forced us in this eternal mode of conflict. You live with people, you're stuck with them 24/7, and you're fighting about things you never knew you could fight about. Anybody, this happened to them over the last year and a half? Well, when I was, anybody familiar with Reddit? Reddit is an online internet forum where people talk about stuff and questions about any kind of topic. Or one of the most popular forums in Reddit over the last year and a half is called AITA, and it stands for something I can't fully spell out for risk of being offensive to somebody, but it stands for Am I the beep beep? And if you're into the King James version for a donkey, that's part of the equation. And then the second half is some kind of an opening somewhere. So am I the beep beep? You get what this forum's all about. And what it is people are they're posting instances where they're asking, honestly, they're saying, okay, this is what I did. Am I the jerk? Am I the one that's really being ridiculous here? And it's fascinating It is really very, very popular over the last few months because so many of us can relate to it. Here's just a few of the things that I pulled out yesterday that are trending on this Reddit thing. Am I the jerk for not letting my in-laws stay in my home overnight to catch an earlier flight? All right? I get it, right? But here's what happens. People vote. Are they the beep beep or are they not? And this helps us discover, are we the cause of the conflict or is somebody else? Well, I get the in-laws staying over, all right? Am I the jerk for forgetting to watch over a friend's house? You know they're gone for 2 weeks. You're supposed to watch the cat and the goldfish and water the plants. You totally forgot. They came back and everything is dead. Are you the jerk or were they the jerks for expecting such a thing? I don't know. You can vote on that if you go onto this site. Here's a few others real quick. Am I the beep beep for telling my parents, this is why no one likes you? I don't know who this person, but you can read more of the scenario in each of these things. Am I the beep beep for prioritizing a pie server over my husband's career? I don't even know what that means. Is the pie server a person? Is it a piece of furniture? I think maybe you're the beep beep. Okay. Am I the beep beep for ignoring my mom's birthday because she ignored my wife's and said she wasn't family? Wow, they're going to have a great Thanksgiving, right? Am I the jerk for being mad at a friend who keeps taking our baby names? Like, who owns baby names, right? And here's my favorite one. This is my favorite. I might even weigh in on this. Am I the beep beep for refusing to pay for ranch at a pizza place and going across the street to buy a bottle from CVS? I think they're genius, right? There's conflict everywhere. You cannot make this stuff up. We are people who do conflict, and a lot of times it's not great. It's hard. Conflict is really difficult. And we have different ways of approaching it, don't we? We've been in this series, and this is the final one, called Emotionally Healthy Relationships. And it's on purpose that we're talking about conflict on the last week. Because so many of the things that we've already talked about come into play today. Our expectations, whether they're valid or not, our self-awareness, how we communicate, those principles all come in at this apex of conflict resolution. And just to remind you, we've been saying this every single week. If you miss some of the weeks, please go online. I think it'll help you. But Jesus said that the greatest command of all the Bible can be summarized into two things. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and with all your mind, first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, what Jesus is saying is strip away all the religious stuff that we do, all of the trappings and everything, and boil it down. The fact of the matter is how we love is ultimately the goal here. Are we loving God, and are we loving others like ourselves? We also need to learn to love ourselves. And the problem is, as church people, as religious people, we have this tendency to strip away our religious and spiritual lives and kind of neglect our emotional and relational lives. And Jesus is saying they're inseparable, people. It's the way we treat others mirrors our relationship with God. How we're doing with God should show up in how we talk to our neighbors and our coworkers, how we get along with our spouse and our children and our in-laws. The two are connected. This is not just a practical series, but it is theological. And so we have to dig in and do some hard work because relationships are hard and emotions need to be dealt with, and conflict is real. It's not, is there going to be conflict? It's about what we do when there is conflict. Bob Goff, who's a great author and who talks about doing outreach and loving our community, has a book called Everybody Always. In other words, love everybody always. And he says this about this topic. He says, Jesus talked to his friends a lot about how we should identify ourselves. He said it wouldn't be what we said we believed or all the good we hope to do someday. Nope. He said we would identify ourselves simply by how we loved people. It's tempting to think there's more to it, but there's not. Love isn't something we fall into. Love is something we become. So our big idea for today, when it comes to this idea of loving others and conflict, is this. To have emotionally healthy relationships, we need to do a couple things. Eliminate dirty fighting tactics. Anybody? And fight cleanly for the sake of the relationship. Because here's the key principle. True peace will never come by pretending that what is wrong is right. And we're going back again and again to our master role model, who is Jesus. Jesus was involved with conflict. It was. If you follow his footprints through the Gospels, time and time again, whether it's his friends, whether it's the religious leaders out there, whether it's his family, there are these moments of tension and this conflict. And Jesus, there's three things I noticed from his life that I think we should put overlaying on ours. One, he sometimes brought disruption in order to bring true peace. In other words, he stirred the pot sometimes if he thought it was going to help bring peace to the relationship. Second, he did not avoid conflict or appease people, never. And third, he didn't ignore tensions or differences. See, conflict was inevitable for Jesus, and it's inevitable for you and for me. Now, I don't know about you, how you grew up, but all of us have our family of origin stuff, our junk, on how we fight or learn to fight, right? Some of you grew up in homes of screamers and yellers, right? Some of you had a parent that was a hitter or a thrower of things. Some of you grew up in a family where conflict was just shoved onto the table. And you pretend like everybody's happy. I don't know. But I grew up in a home where conflict was pretty much addressed. And I'm a conflict confronter, and I'm trying to do better at pausing my eagerness to resolve this, right? Now, I married a young lady, you know Barb, and some of you know poor Barb, because you know me. But grew up in a home that was a conflict avoidance. You have conflict, just kind of walk. Their motto was walk away. Just walk away. Our first year of marriage was hell, I'm telling you, for both of us. And it was probably mostly my fault, okay. But I was this confronter. If there was a difference of opinion, I wanted to hash through it. I wanted to go like a lawyer and talk through these things. I had it all down and lecture and boom, 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 boom. She's the avoider. And I remember, this is no lie, and I told her this first service where she was in here, so she's okay with this. I remember one time some stupid, opinion about something, but I wanted to prove my point, so I was coming at her with all my reasons, debating, and she was walking away. Finally, she was running away. Literally running. And I kept pursuing her to get this figured out. She crawled into a crawl space hole as a part of a side of the house, like an attic, that I couldn't fit into just to get away from me. So we got our issues. We're working on it, okay? We're doing much better after 30 years. We don't have it figured out, and neither will you overnight, but we're learning. And I want to share some things today that we're discovering. My kids in conflict. I have 4 daughters. Some of you know my daughters. They're now adults. But the way that Barb and I, when they were fighting, because you got 4 daughters that are like a year or two apart, there's always something, right? So the thing we did was we would make them hug each other and stand in the corner and look into each other's eyes for an hour. Now, this works when they're 3 and 4. But we tried it when they were like 16 and 17. Not such a good idea. You want to separate violence, not bring together violence, okay? So we're not getting this all right, but we're working on it too. But our kids have learned some things about, and you have learned some things about how to resolve conflict. And some of it's good, and some of it's not so good. So how do we deal with conflict? There's 3 common ways. 2 of them are not so great. One of them is God's way. First conflict choice is what I'm calling false peace. False peace. And some of you know this. You were taught in homes that conflict was supposed to be shoved under the carpet. You didn't really address it. It just kind of simmered there. It's bad. Because what happens when you have false peace is that bitterness, that resentment, that hurt, that questioning that begins to build and build and build until eventually it explodes like a volcano. And there's just a ton of pressure and emotional problems that happen when we suppress our tension and our conflict. It's not healthy. It was happening in the Old Testament, and the prophet Jeremiah said this: "They have healed the brokenness of my people superficially, saying peace, peace, but there is no peace." See, just avoiding conflict is not the solution. Some of you maybe say, whoa, Mark. I remember that Jesus, in like a famous message, said something: "Blessed are the peacemakers." Didn't he say that? What are you talking about, right? Yeah, that's right. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." He didn't say, "Blessed are the peacekeepers." There's a big difference between being a peacemaker and being a peacekeeper. Peacekeepers are trying to avoid conflict at all costs. Peacemakers are involved in the tension to resolve it in a healthy way. Walking away and having false peace is as bad as having no peace at all. I remember doing some premarital counseling with a young couple who said they never fight. And I said, then one of you's lying, or one of you's not telling the problem. One of you is suppressing it. Because when 2 people of different personalities and opinions and thoughts and backgrounds spend their lives together, you're going to have conflict. It's inevitable. So you never have an argument, you never have a conflict. Somebody or both of you is suppressing it to keep the peace. Jesus didn't avoid conflict over and over again. There was this time when the religious leaders were coming at him to accuse him of blasphemy. And he didn't just say, "Oh, you're right, I should really back off and be careful," or "I should do these things someplace where they aren't." Nope. He addressed it head on and spoke the truth. He says, "So that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." And he's addressing the religious leaders. He said to the paralytic, "I say to you, stand up, take up your mat, and go to your home." And he stood up and immediately took the mat and went out before him. Jesus didn't back down. He did what was right. He didn't appease the leaders. There's a time when his best friends, and one of them, Peter, was totally amped up against something that Jesus said. Look at this situation. Peter took him, Jesus, aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord. This shall never happen to you." Jesus was telling him, "I'm going to die in a few days." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." That doesn't feel fluffy, does it? "You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." So Pete Scazzaro, who's the author of this book, Emotional Healthy Relationships, says, "True peacemakers love God, others, and themselves enough to disrupt false peace. You can't have the true peace of Christ's kingdom with lies and pretense. They must be exposed to the light and replaced with the truth. This is the mature, loving thing to do." That's a powerful statement. So false peace is an option, but not a good one. Second option, fight dirty. Anybody have somebody in their life who, when you get into an argument, fights dirty? And I'm not just talking like, WWF or UFC championship stuff. I'm talking about verbals. I mean, doing things that just really shouldn't be involved in, making it painful. Anybody here have a tendency to fight dirty? Listen. We all do. We all do. We all have a tendency to do things in conflict resolution that make it worse than better. And I'm going to talk about some of those. See, in your program or online, I've listed some things that we call dirty fighting tactics. And I think when you look through these lists, I want you to check the ones that apply to you. Not to your husband, not to your wife, not to your parents, not to your friends, not about your neighbors. This is about you. I know you know what they do dirty. What do you do that's dirty? All right? Let's walk through these. Silent treatment, name calling, lecturing, criticizing, blaming, attacking, sarcasm, condescension, complaining, threatening gestures, denying. How about walking away or placating, anger, rage, passive-aggressive behavior, avoiding, shouting, lying, using always. You always do this. Well, you never do that. Hitting, violence, showing contempt. You know, one therapist said that he can pretty much decipher whether a marriage is going to last or not by one quality. He says, when I see one or both individuals in that relationship showing contempt, and it could be a facial expression, it could be something muttered under the breath, but this idea of showing contempt is saying there's a complete disregard for the value of the other person, a disrespect. It's gotten to that place now where there's contempt for that other person. There's help, but that's a dangerous place for a relationship to be in, because now it's not about the problem. Now we're qualifying the person, and contempt is a dangerous thing. So we don't want to have false peace. We don't want to fight dirty. I want you to check mark those things in your list that you yourself can be honest and courageous enough to say, I do this. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to start asking God to help you limit that kind of behavior when you have conflict. Now, I know you can't have this conversation with everybody that you meet and say, this is how we're going to resolve conflict. But there are people in your life that matter a lot to you. And here's the thing. The best time to start learning to fight clean is when you're not in the middle of a fight. So when you're at a place where there's somewhat normalcy, where there's some kind of a peace, I would encourage you to take some of the things that we're learning and to talk with them, with that person, and come to some resolution. Come to say, we're going to agree not to avoid each other when we have conflict. We're going to agree not to insult each other or call each other names or to say, that's just like your dad or you're just like your mom. Whatever it is, 2 or 3, and begin working on that. And when that crops up in your next conflict, identify it and say, remember we agreed, and try to limit that. That will be a healthy step in your relationship to start tackling these things. And you've got a lifetime to begin working on learning to develop the right healthy conflict resolution skills. So the third choice is to fight clean. And what do we mean when I mention fight clean? Well, because it sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? I mean, fighting and clean, all right? A clean fight, according to Pete Scazzaro, is a negotiation between two people for the sake of their relationship. It's a negotiation for the sake of the relationship. It's where there's a conversation that goes through the difficult tunnel of conflict. Let me tell you something. Most of us are conflict avoiders, right? Why are we conflict avoiders? Because it's painful. Sometimes we label ourselves as a good person for not going into the conflict or addressing the problem. And we think that it might be selfish to address that or to dig after that. But let me tell you something. Let's unbury what's going on in our hearts when we refuse to tackle the difficult questions. For many of us, we're just trying to protect ourselves, right? If we're honest, we don't address the problem. We don't bring it up. We think because we're noble, but the fact is, we don't bring it up because we don't want to get hurt. We're not being so noble. We're really thinking about us. That's why conflict is so difficult. Most of us don't realize that going through conflict is one of the greatest helpful tools to becoming closer to another person. Therapists talk about when a couple has the courage and the bravery and the tools to enter and stay in what they call the tunnel of conflict until they come out on the other side. That is one of the greatest ways that two people can become closer and more intimate with one another. Some therapists say that the key to intimacy is always through the tunnel of conflict. I don't like that, but I find it true. So we've got to be people who refuse to allow false peace to continue, to decide that we're not going to fight dirty, but we're going to negotiate. We're going to work through our differences and fight clean. Fight clean. And I think in Romans chapter 12, this is what Paul was saying. He says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. That's dirty fighting. But be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. He's saying it's not always going to be possible, right? He's saying sometimes there are people in your life that aren't going to play by the rules, that are going to continue to promote conflict and tension. In those cases, you do what you can, and then you let your hands go. You respond by going to God and saying, I'm doing what I know to be right. And you do that before God, and you take care of what you're going through emotionally. But just know that there are some people that will never, ever, ever be courageous enough to deal with this in a mature way. But you do your part, and they'll be accountable to God for theirs. So what does it look like to fight cleanly? Well, first principle I want us to kind of identify is this. If you are the person that has the problem, if you are the person that is being irritated or annoyed and wants to address something, I think the biblical process is for you to initiate the conversation, as hard as that may be. And here's why. It says, Jesus says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. It is up to you to begin the process if you have something where you've been hurt, somebody's mad at you, and you feel the tension, where there's something been done wrong to you. It's going to take you to step into this process to initiate it. And I'm going to give you simple steps on how to do that, all right? But here are some overarching principles. Before you enter into that conversation, pray. Ask God for guidance. Ask God to look into your heart, to reveal to you any part that you've had to play in this. You may have impure motives. You may have more of a role than you initially think. There are many times when I've been ready to go confront something on something I felt that they did wrong to me. And as I prayed with God and was honest before God, I realized that my attitude was wrong. And I had to do some work on me instead of them. So pray. Second, decide that you will be a person who assumes the best in others. Listen, we all have a background of being hurt. And we all have a tendency to take those hurts and overlay them onto somebody else. We've got to not do that because it's not fair and it's not helpful. Decide to the very best of your ability to assume that the best in this person that you're going to have a conversation with, that they're not intentionally doing this to hurt you, that their motives are pure and honest. I know it's hard when you've been hurt, but assume the best at this point. Third, talk to each other, not to other people. I can't tell you how many conflicts have escalated in this church, in my family, in my life, because someone didn't go talk to the person who hurt them, but instead started talking to other people. And then they get all these different opinions. People put their junk on top of it, and it becomes this blown out of proportion thing. And the Bible says it's really sinful to gossip. And you can rationalize it all you want about, I just need somebody to hear me out. The person to hear you out is the person you think wronged you. And pray to God and go talk directly to that person. Don't go to everyone else. The next one, allow everyone to speak. This is a two-sided conversation. One person shouldn't dominate. We have to listen and we have to talk. Hear their perspective as well as share yours. I don't know about you, but when I've been honest enough to slow down, to just kind of push my anger, my hurt below a little bit, back off, and I allow that person to speak and to share their side and to their opinion, it changes things. We presuppose stuff about other people that makes the situation worse. And try not to do that. Let the other person speak and share their position as well. And then I like this last one. Argue like you're right and listen like you're wrong. Because you could be, even though it doesn't seem like it at the moment. Everyone, James 1:9 says, should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I struggle with that one. Anybody else? I'm not a good listener, and I get angry pretty quickly. I'm doing better than I used to. And last one, commit to clarity and closure. An argument, a conflict is resolved when two of you believe that you've come to a satisfying compromise, that you've both shared your sides of the story, and you come up with some solutions that both will be happy with. And keep working through that tunnel of conflict until you get there. And when you get there and you begin to live together with those kinds of conclusions, your relationship will be powerfully different. Have the guts and the courage to do that. Don't fight to win the argument. Fight to win the relationship. See, I'm a person that loves to be right. Anybody else? And I can get to the place where I'm arguing now just to prove that I'm right, just to show that they're wrong, and to the damage of the relationship. Being right is not what it's all about. The relationship is what it's all about. Fight for the relationship, not to be right. So how does this happen? Now, if you text the words clean fight to our usual JC number, 301-880-1543. It's all over the program or if you text the words clean flight is a whole other thing. You don't, clean fight. There's kind of a synopsis of what I've shared today because I'm telling you, you're not going to walk away and remember all this. You're going to need something that reminds you that you can give to the other person. And there's kind of some steps and some reminders and tools for you to take with you to use. So I download that, print it off, keep it with you on your phone or whatever. But it starts with the person who's been wronged, who feels hurt, who feels the most oppressed or whatever. They begin the conversation. Step one, they state the problem. I notice, let me give you an example. This is probably something some of us can relate to. I notice, honey, when you leave for work in the morning, you're always in a rush, you're always running late, and because of that, you leave all of your junk everywhere, and you rarely say goodbye to us, and that hurts. Of course, this is a very not a big deal kind of a thing, but it can be real. And then state why it's important. Remember last week we talked about our values. This bothers me because I value you, and I don't feel value me. When you leave me to clean up your stuff, and when you haven't said goodbye or kissed me goodbye. I value the relationship we have. I value not feeling disrespected. I feel devalued when you rush out and leave this mess. And then third, you fill in the following sentence. When you leave in a rush and leave your junk out and don't say goodbye, I feel devalued. It's an important thing for you to understand where you are emotionally. Some of us, this is the hardest work of all. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know why I'm feeling it. But you need to figure that out. That's what we talked about last week. And then state your requests. I would really love it if in the morning you would make just enough time so that you wouldn't just leave your stuff everywhere for me to clean up, and that we could at least say goodbye and wish each other a happy day. Can we do that? And now the other person gets a chance to respond. They can say things like, no, I want you to clean up my mess. I don't want to kiss you goodbye. You have morning breath. I don't know, right? But you come up to some kind of conclusion. You say, okay, we're going to do this. In order for me to get up earlier, that means I might have to get up and start working with the kids, helping the kids get ready, because there's all these things that she's got to do or he's got to do that's causing the rush. And you work out the difference. And at the end, you say, is this good for us? Let's check back in a few weeks and see how we're doing. It is possible to have a clean fight by negotiating as two adults who are aware of their own emotional status, who make an agreement to work through it even though it's difficult, and not just settle for false peace. You know, I want to encourage you to take this seriously. Not just because conflict is hard and marriages and friendships and coworkers and neighbors and all that stuff is really trying. I want you as a church to take this seriously. Because Jesus said that people will know we are Christians, followers of Jesus, by our love. And unfortunately, I don't think we have a very positive reputation. When people around you in your work see you tackle the hard conflicts in a mature, loving way, you'll stand out as different. When people see you go through hard things in your family with your kids or your mom and dad, and you resolve to keep fighting through it and not just settle or talk badly about each other, you will shine as something different. I want us to be a kind of people who our community, our neighbors recognize as different because of our relationship with Jesus. That should show up in how we love each other, how we cope with one another, how we work through our conflicts together. Because our marriages are hard. Doesn't mean we have less conflict than people who don't follow Jesus. It just means we do it differently. Parenting is exhausting. Doesn't mean that it's not. It just means we're trying to do it with love in a different way. When we go to work, when we go to our neighborhoods, when we're in any kind of conversation, when we drive, oh man, you should never listen to me in the car when I'm driving in Moco, because you would forever not come back. You would say, that guy is nuts, because I'm working on it. We're all working on our stuff. God wants us to do better, and we can because of who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And listen, before Jesus, all of us were enemies of God. And Jesus, even while we were yet sinners, as Bill said, took the first step, not just to leave heaven, but to walk on this earth to understand us and then to die for us so that we could have a relationship with God again. And if Jesus did that for you and for me, then we can do these things for one another. And if you've never embraced Jesus as your leader, your friend, your Savior, that's the beginning of something different. And today, you can make a difference too. By saying, Jesus, I want you to lead me. I need to come home to you. I need to be baptized. I want to be a part of this community. Because we're a community of broken people who are figuring things out because we have a Savior who loves us in spite of what we've done. We'd welcome you to be a part of it. Let's pray. God, thank you for the power of relationships, that you created us unique and different. And God, it's hard. You know. But you love us, and you promise to help us. I pray right now for marriages in this room that are in tense moments, that are in conflict, God, that you would step in and touch both people's hearts, that your Holy Spirit would change something that's going the wrong direction, and you would begin a process of healing in that marriage. I pray for parents who are feeling distance from their children, or kids here, teenagers that have anger or feel been discarded by mom or dad or some family member, that you would begin to step in and heal them. God, I pray for those of us who have tension at work or in our neighborhoods or in our schools. We can't do this without you. We need you. And I pray for those who've never embraced you as their leader and friend and Savior, that today they would trust you for the first time and surrender to you. That they would let us know that that step is being taken, and that we can work with them and help them and bring them into relationship where they have encouragement as this church family. God, I ask you to do the work that none of us can do through your Holy Spirit in this place right now. In Jesus' name, amen.
So I throw up my hands, I praise you again and again, 'cause all that